We offer our most humble salutations to our divine and ever so sweet Swami, who is always with us, within us, around us, forever guiding us. And we know, as we have been brought here today, that it is his wish and his command, and we are surrendering ourselves to you, Swami, knowing that your sweet voice, your sweet songs, your sweetness in general will flow through us. So thank you, Swami. Please be with all of us through this next hour and for many, many hours that come after this. Sairam, everyone. Thank you so much to Region 3 for this invitation as well. We always feel like anytime you are invited to speak about Swami's stories or Swami's experiences, we kind of relive that process, we relive that memory. And I feel like that's Swami's way of saying, knock, knock, listen, you've maybe forgotten something, or maybe this is your time to actually understand an experience or a lesson that may have happened decades ago. So we are very, very grateful and thankful because as we have really talked through what we're going to share today, and this is actually our very first time talking together in this kind of setting. I think we have learned and relived some beautiful experiences of our own individually, but also in our journey together as well. Shreyas and I connect with Swami very differently, actually, in our own specific ways, but we do have some common things that we do also. So one of that is we are often looking at, Swami's quotes that pop up, or even Swami's bhajans, and like there might be a certain line in there that we feel like is really a message for us. So that's kind of the theme we've taken today, is really this musical conversation with Swami, because I think that is something that, even though we do it separately, it is something that we both do in our ways. So that's kind of our format today, of just traveling through some experiences through the journey of music and through the journey of some quotes that have inspired us along the way. Okay, so I guess we'll get this musical conversation started. So we'll start with the song. May we all be flutes within your hands. Let us be your melody. We'll sing at your command. May we all be flutes within your hands.
May we all be flutes within your hands.
Let us be your melody, we'll sing at your command.
Let us be your melody, we'll sing at your command.
Krishna's flute will be, we will sing his melody.
Krishna's flute will be, we will sing his melody.
When desire is gone, we will finally sing his song.
When desire is gone, we will finally sing his song.
Song of love, a song of truth.
Song of love, a song of truth.
Let the melody flow through.
Let the melody flow through.
Song of love, a song of truth.
Song of love, a song of truth.
May our lives be one with you.
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 May we all be flutes within your hands.
May we all be flutes within your hands.
Let us be your melody, we'll sing at your command.
Let us be your melody, we'll sing at your command.
Krishna's flutes will be, we will sing his melody.
Krishna's flutes will be, we will sing his melody.
When desire is gone, we will finally sing his song.
When desire is gone, we will finally sing his song.
A song of love, a song of truth.
Song of love, a song of truth.
Let the melody flow through.
Let the melody flow through.
A song of love, a song of truth.
Song of love, a song of truth.
May our lives be one with you.
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 May we all be flutes within your hands. many years ago, I don't remember exactly when, but one of our regional, I think, birthday celebrations, Brother Hari Subramaniam, who many of you may be familiar with, was one of our speakers. And through many of his musical experiences and story sharing, he shared a story that just really touched my heart, even till date. And it was the story between Radha and Krishna. So, we all probably are aware how just, Radha just pines for Krishna's love, is kind of this embodiment of devotion and yearning. But she had a little seed of jealousy in her, because she always saw that Krishna just always had the flute very close to him, closer than he ever could or would hold Radha. So Krishna Radha kind of pondered, like, what does this flute have that I don't have? And what makes this flute so much more special to the Lord than everything that I give, or all the devotion, all the yearning that I have? So story has it that Krishna, I guess, left his flute behind one day as he went into the forest, and which is very rare. And so Radha actually seized that moment and started talking to the flute, and started asking the flute, what is so special? What is this quality that you have that maybe I could try to inculcate or try to practice so I can be as close to the Lord as you are? And the flute, smiled and sweetly said, I am just hollow. I'm free of ego and free of expectation. So the Lord's music can just flow right through. And that story just stuck to me that particular day when Brother Hari Subramaniam shared it. Just that, devoid of anything, devoid of even yearning, even just be a hollow space. And so at the time for me, I was, singing a lot of bhajans at center, and I was definitely caught up in, if you're a singer, you probably have all experienced this maya of like, is the shruti correct? Is the pitch okay? Is the, it's noisy, it's this, it's that, is my voice okay? Just a lot of ego-filled or me-filled thoughts in my head. And I really was working on getting to a space of, I just want to be and I just want to sing because that's just what Swami wants me to do. And so when he shared this story, that actually became my personal sadhana. It became my namasmarana, my prayer to Swami. So maybe up until then, I would pray like, Swami, please make sure my bhajan is okay. Or, Swami, I want to sing well for you. But I really switched that to, Swami, please make me a hollow flute so your melody may actually flow through me. So whatever you want can flow through me to others. And I just, would chant that every single time. Every time a little doubt would come up or a little anxiety before singing, I would say that internally, just take a few breaths in. I always visualize being a flute and that air kind of going through and Swami's love going through. And so I was doing this for many years, at least a couple of years. And I also kind of symbolize that for me as if my heart is open and hollow, it will allow for Swami to come and reside in there, and it will allow for Swami's love to flow through. So with that, I was doing the sadhana, and 2007 came around, and that was the World Youth Conference, one of the World Youth Conferences in Prasanthi Nilayam. And I had the good fortune of attending. I was pretty involved with a lot of activities leading up to it and a lot of committees over there as well. And out of nowhere, and that's probably a story for another day, but there was a sudden women's or girls' bhajan group that was formed. So we had an international choir. I was part of that. I had gone early. We were practicing. We had exhibition. We had multiple teams going on. But there really was no girls' bhajan singing group. And out of nowhere, this happened. I was in the middle of choir practice. I got pulled into something. One thing led to another. We came up with a bunch of songs, and we were just prepared and practicing, pouring everything we could into it. And then just waiting for Swami to, give us that blessing to offer that garland of music in front of him. There was also simultaneously a boys' bhajan group that was pre-established and that we didn't know about. So they had been practicing as well. And then there was like 3 or 4 days in a row where, we would go to darshan, and Swami played with the youth in so many sweet ways during that trip that many of us involved are still unpeeling the layers and understanding some of those stories. But nonetheless, the boys' bhajans group, they had a chance, I think 2 or 3 days back to back to present their offering. And we would sit there and we're just yearning and we're like, okay, something must be missing. What are we not doing, Swami? Like, please let us offer this. Finally, one day came and we were there, and I still remember just, Swami has the most sweet, like, telling expressions. It's just like a child and a mother and teacher, everything all at once. But I remember we literally were on our knees, just praying, just please, Swami, please, Swami, please, Swami. And so he turns and he looks, and he had this kind of look like, oh, you guys want to sing too? Like, why didn't you tell me before? Like, you could have done that. And so I still just, even recollecting that story, can just picture that expression or that face of, oh, why didn't you just tell me? I would have let you sing. So anyways, we got this green light. And so we were able to offer 2 bhajans before it switched to another group. And one of the bhajans we had prepared was an English bhajan medley of songs. And I didn't actually realize it in that moment until I opened my mouth and I started singing, because the part of the bhajan medley that I had been assigned along with another sister was May We All Be Flutes Within Your Hands. So for me, that was, a couple of years of like making this my sadhana and saying, please, Swami, make this just second nature to me. I just want it to be all the time. And it was really just pure validation to get that from Swami. And also in some ways, I feel like having sung that and yearned that and chanted that prayer in front of the form just gave it a whole nother level and depth for me. And it is something that I still do. It is not something I do just when I sing. It has become my daily prayer, my namasmarana. I am in healthcare and I work with very, very, very tiny premature infants. And for me, before I open that isolette, that incubator that they're in, before I touch my patients, before I even walk into my NICU, the prayer that I say all the time, every day, every moment is, Swami, make me a flute. Let me be that for hollow flute, so your healing energy, your divine love can touch these babies, can touch these families, can touch this hospital. Just make me that portal through which you flow. So it's just been really sweet to experience that, to get that story, to practice it, to make that my prayer, to make it really my life. And a lot of what comes out of my hands as far as creation, including this actually painting behind you, which just kind of came from out of nowhere, is all about that Krishna, that flute, yearning to be that sweet hollow instrument for our divine Lord.
So you'll see that this pattern of namasmarana and being a hollow flute and yearning, I think will flow through this talk that we're giving. Because one of the things that Ramya does really well is chant the Swami's name when we're driving. And so a lot of times it's me who's driving, so it's obvious that she has to take Swami's name, right? But, anytime we are in rush hour traffic, and I brake, or, there's the car in front going, and she immediately, instinctively goes, Sai Ram, Sai Ram, Sai Ram, Sai Ram. Right? There's a lot of times when we'll be driving long distances and I'll be driving and she'll be dozing off or sleeping or trying to sleep on the passenger side, and she'll just wake up and she'll go Sai Ram, Sai Ram, Sai Ram, or I'll be changing lanes and the dial will make some sound and she'll wake up and say Sai Ram, Sai Ram, Sai Ram. So this is one thing that brought awareness to this aspect of namasmarana in our lives, because one thing Swami says is that the whole objective of human birth is to reach the ultimate, the infinite, and to merge with the infinite, right? So in that sense, he says namasmarana is the easiest way to do that, because there's lots of stories where at the last moments of your life, if you take the Lord's name, then you immediately get fulfillment, or your next birth, your next life leads you to that path where there's God fulfillment. And in that regard, there's a story of Ajamila, which Maybe you guys have heard, but if not, I'll repeat for it. Where Ajamila was a very sinful person, almost a lot of demonic qualities within him. But at the last moments of his life, one thing he had done well was that he had named his son Narayana, even though he had demonic qualities. So at the last moments of his life, he was on his deathbed, and just right before he passed, he called out to his son, Narayana. And as he called out to that, he achieved the ultimate, and he merged with the infinite, because the last thought that he had, was towards that. So, all of us might feel, okay, yeah, that's easy, so I'll do whatever I want until the last moment of my life. And then at the last moment, yes, I'll remember God, no problems. But one thing that the tabla has taught me is, if you want to present a piece for 1 minute, you have to practice for 10 hours behind the scenes in order to put all of the little things, little nuances that come together, so that you can face 100 people or 200 people that are sitting in front of you and actually be able to play this without nervousness or whatever it is. So also, if we have to prepare ourselves for the last moments of our life, we need to practice. And so there's a story on this also. Swami says very beautifully, so inspired by Ajamila, there was a merchant who, a small shop owner who, said, okay, I'll name all my sons with God's names. So, if I don't remember one son, at least one of the sons I'll remember, and I'll call out to him, and I'll remember God's name at the end. So he names his sons Rama, Krishna, Govinda, and Narayana. And, then he goes about his worldly activities, very engrossed in all of the physical world and all of the stuff that's going on. And then, right at the time when he's about to die, he says, oh yeah, I've named my sons properly, so let me call out to them. So he says, Rama, Krishna, Govinda, Narayana, everybody come, Rama, Krishna, and everybody comes, and they're standing by it, and he had passed out, and he just opened his eyes right before he was going to die. And then he said, all of you are here. Who's taking care of the shops, fools? And so that was his last thought. But this aspect hit very close to my home, because I grew up, when I was growing up and I was really small, I used to go to Bombay, and that's where my dad's dad, my grandfather, used to be by himself and chanting Krishna, Krishna, Krishna all day long. He had lost his eyesight, where he wasn't seeing much, and he was almost 94, 95 years of age. So all he did was just chant Krishna, Krishna, Krishna all day long. And he would sleep exactly at 8 o'clock and then wake up, and then he would do the same thing. And, he would just come for dinner or lunch or something, one meal a day. But in his last moments, I remember we were all in the hospital together with him, and we were all huddled around him, and he had his eyes closed, and he had his eyes closed for a long time. And then at one point of time, he just opened his eyes wide, and he did this namaskar thing right in front of him, and he goes Krishna, and that second he passed away. And to me, that's really an inspiration and something to aspire to, something that has inspired me in that sense. So Namasmarana.
Right. Ready for our song?
Yes. So in that sense, in every moment of our life, we should be leading our Namasmarana and making sure that we are taking care of God's name.
In every moment of my life, please be with me.
Every moment of my life, please be with me.
In every single act of mine, be thou my guide.
In every single act of mine, be thou my guide.
Baba, Sai Baba.
Baba,
So on the topic of Namasmarna and saying Sairam in the car, I had this experience, again, a few years ago. So one of the other things that Shreyas and I do, again, individually and together, is we do a lot of meditative work using tools and symbols from Phyllis Crystal that, again, have been guided by Swami. And so one of the visualizations or tools that I use pretty regularly is something called a beach ball, which is a protective mechanism when you're feeling like you might be a target or something is coming your way, or maybe you don't know and you're just feeling vulnerable. So I don't always do it very regularly. I actually often will tell Shreyas to do it, like for our house when we're traveling or things like that. I have more faith in his imagery of that particular symbol than my own sometimes. But this particular morning, for whatever reason, I was called to do the beach ball. And I went to work, went about my day. It was fine. Nothing eventful. And then when I was leaving work for, again, some particular reason, which we'll find out later, I was called to visualize that symbol again, which is just this big, huge, I visualize a golden beach ball. It can be whatever you end up visualizing, and me in the center of it. And I'm just driving, it's rush hour, just a normal routine. There was some traffic, but nothing terrible. And out of nowhere, I was in the leftmost lane. Out of nowhere, the car in front of me braked very suddenly. And even though I had some distance, I could not react very well in time, and I ended up spinning my wheel and swerving. Right before that, I had been just thinking about a Swami story or something, and was singing a bhajan. Actually, I don't remember which one now. And again, out of habit, I started my Sairam, 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 Sairam. My whole life flashed in front of me. I very distinctly remember letting go of the wheel and saying, "Okay, Swami, you take over." I know that I spun several times. All the way from the left lane. This is, again, peak rush hour traffic. All the lanes are full. Busy Phoenix Highway. And I spun. When I was done in what felt like eternity, I was facing traffic coming head on. So on the highway, completely the opposite way. All of the cars had stopped. Not a single car was close to me. And when I just opened my eyes or got out of that moment, right in front of me was basically a cop car, the police, which again, right there. So that was for me, just Swami being there, just protecting or stopping traffic. I have no idea what happened behind the scenes. He got out, he came. I was definitely shaking, was jolted. Asked me if I was doing okay. Asked me if the car would turn on, and then drove me, guided me until I got off the next exit, which was my exit for home. I came home, I took a moment in the garage, came in, told Shreyas the story. And I think what's interesting is he is someone that's very into cars and repairs, his own stuff and all that. And when he looked at the car and looked at my tires, from your opinion, there really was no evidence of any of that spinning or any of that, trauma for the car, so to speak, actually happening. And so I think that was just another, just a moment again of that reality and truth for me. Sometimes we test Swami. I wasn't really testing him that moment, but he was there. He gave me that intuition to put that beach ball around to protect myself. I don't know if that gave me invisible space around my car or what it did, but it was just another sweet presence that Swami had shown in our lives, just together, and just that entire power again of practicing Namasmarna. So in the moment of crisis, you don't have to think about it. It's always second nature. God's sweet name is just always on your lips.
Yeah, and being the caring husband that I am, my first instinct was to run to the garage and see if the car was okay. So I ran
priorities,
of course. So I ran to the garage, she described some things to me, but like she said, the tires were completely okay. There was nothing going on. And so I was almost, thinking, are you imagining this, or because you had a long day, maybe you were tired, are you imagining this? But no, this really happened. And so, that brought me again awareness, that incident, into how important Namasmarna is in our daily lives. And for me, since that time, I have tried to incorporate Namasmarana. More specifically, I'm drawn towards the Gayatri Mantra. So whenever I'm not doing anything or I'm not using my brain actively, I do my Gayatri Mantra, especially before going to sleep and after waking, before you even open your eyes, and when you know you're awake, just do the Gayatri Mantra a few times. It gives you a sense of calm and a sense of preparation for what is about to begin, and to begin your day in the right way. So that before any of the thought comes, before your WhatsApp messages, before you look at anything else, you're already in the space of mind where you're going towards Swami and towards your ultimate purpose. So,
can I just pop in for a second?
Yes.
So with that, so for Shreyas, his connection is the Gayatri. For me, my connection is that prayer about being a flute. For many others, it could be many other things. But one of the points I wanted to make too is we have so many beautiful bhajans given to us. And that's Namasmarana as well. So, when we sang, when I slip, when I fall, lend me your hand, that's happened so many times where something will happen. Like literally, like I've actually had these experiences where I'm walking down the stairs and I trip while I'm singing that song, and I trip and I fall and there's a banister or just whatever that might be, or there's that moment. So I think that's sometimes we get caught up in like what should the prayer be, or any of that. But when we sing, that's prayer as well. Just focus on the meaning, like know what you're saying. That's your conversation, your time with God as well. So did you want to add anything before?
Right. So we've talked about Namasmarana. We've talked about that in internal connection, and so this is what we'll delve into a little bit more.
So in the bhajan that we just sang, in every moment of my life, one of the lines is from the unreal into the real, right? So I have always wondered, what does that mean? So superficially, I think, I get it, I understand it. And I've had the same contemplation on Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya, from death lead us to immortality. So again, superficially, I'm like, okay, I get it. But what is it? I feel like there's just something more that I'm supposed to get out of this. There's something that Swami wants me to go deeper within. And so I'll share a story here that for me helped me, again, it's still a journey, it's evolving. But I'll share a story that was right when Swami left the physical form. So I, at the time, was in Waco, Texas. Kind of middle of nowhere-ish. It's about a couple of hours to Dallas, a couple of hours to Austin. So I didn't really have a Sai Center in Waco. I had moved from a pretty bustling Sai Center in the Phoenix area to over there. But I had always had this thought internally that, Swami has prepared me really well for whenever his form leaves. Like I had just had these fleeting thoughts, not necessarily that year, but in general. Because yes, I've had a couple of, quick interactions with the form. But for the most part, my journey with Swami has been center, a chair, a robe, a picture, and then even more so internally, especially when I went to Waco. And I didn't even have a center, a chair, a robe, any of that. I, of course, had one little small picture, with me in my altar. So right at the time that Swami left the form, or we were told that he left the form, when I correlated times, my dream was at that exact time. It was a black and white dream. I was in the hospital, and I just distinctly remember walking by, looking around, and everybody had these really solemn faces. And I was like, I don't know why they have these castor oil faces, like Swami says. He always says, be happy. And I remember distinctly looking through. It's like one of these. I've only seen this in Indian hospital videos or pictures, but a door with a circular glass, circular window that you can look into the ER or the operating room or whatever. And I remember looking through, and Swami's form was laying, on the bed in the hospital room. And I could tell from everybody's faces around that the life source or the form within had passed. And I woke up from that dream again. I found out I was obviously getting texts and everything by that point. And I just had this sense of calm within me. So much so that I started doubting my connection. I was like, everybody's crying. Everybody's call I get is like everyone's lamenting. We're praying for Swami to, wake up. And we all know how those times were. There were bhajans happening everywhere, like none of which really I could be a part of. It was also pre-Zoom, so there wasn't really any virtual connection that way. But I just sat there and I reflected and I said, this is what Swami wanted me to know when he said, from the unreal to the real, from death to immortality. It was my connection, my heart to heart was immortal. Swami was omnipresent. Yes, there was the form, and that was the pie or the pudding, but the cherry to all of that was my inner connection. So the pie could go, but that cherry was still there. And for me, like, I feel like the first time I chanted Asatoma Sadgamaya and the whole prayer after that is when it hit me, and I said, this is what you wanted me to know, Swami, that I was not attached to the form. The little bit that I had, you really helped me distance from through my journey, away from a center into Waco, having to really connect internally with my own form. I couldn't really even talk about Swami to anybody there. That omnipresence, that eternal connection, that immortal connection was just there and still is. And I think it's just always going to be timeless. So I just wanted to share that experience as well, and then move into another song that really, again, through those times and times later, has helped me stay grounded in all of this. Oh Lord, I know someday you'll take this loving form away.
Oh Lord, I know someday you'll take your loving form away.
Oh Lord, I know someday you'll take this loving form away.
Oh Lord, I know someday you'll take this loving form away.
What shall I do when the form is gone?
What shall I do when the form is gone?
Grant me the wisdom to carry on.
Grant me the wisdom to carry on.
What shall I do when the form is gone?
What shall I do when the form is gone?
Grant me the wisdom to carry on.
Grant me the wisdom to carry on.
With devotion, not emotion.
With devotion, not emotion.
With devotion, not emotion.
With devotion, not emotion.
Lord, help me realize you're always with me deep inside.
Help me realize you're always with me deep inside.
Lord, help me realize you're always with me deep inside.
Lord, help me realize you're always with me deep inside.
How could we ever be apart?
How could we ever be apart?
You are the one who fills my heart.
You are the one who fills my heart.
How could we ever be apart?
How can we ever be apart?
You are the one who fills my heart.
You are the one who fills my heart.
With devotion, not emotion.
With devotion, not emotion.
With devotion, not emotion.
With devotion, not emotion. So Lord, help me realize you're always with me deep inside. And this, I realized this through my own story, through my own journey with the tabla. And it took me a long time to realize the lessons that he was giving me all along. But growing up in India when I was really small, I really felt a connection with this instrument. And just to give you an idea, my family did not play any musical instruments. We did not have music at home. my dad and mom were always avid listeners of music and bhajans and stuff, but they did not learn a musical instrument. They didn't play a musical instrument. And so for some reason, when I was about 5 or 6 maybe, I was always connected to it, and I always wanted to learn how to play this instrument. And I told my parents, and they were looking for a teacher, but we couldn't find anybody at that point of time. So one day, I used to be at daycare, like after school, we all used to get into an auto rickshaw, and we literally used to hang off of everything like monkeys, back then Swami would say, you're all monkeys. So, we were all doing that. We were having fun. And all of a sudden, the auto rickshaw took a different path than what it usually takes to drop me off at my daycare. And on that path, right before we hit our daycare, I could hear this music coming from all this, from a house. And, there was sitar, and there was tabla, and there was vocals and all that stuff. So I was like, okay, great. I found somebody. And so I went there looking for my teacher, thinking that I found somebody who could teach me tabla. And so I went in on my own, and I requested them, and they said, sure, I'll teach you something. So he taught me something, and then my role was to sit in the balcony, because the thing was going on in a room, and then there was a balcony outside. And so I, with my tabla, had to sit outside and play whatever I could, or whatever he had taught me, and which was just like maybe 1 or 2 notes. So I did that for a long time, and I was going through all of that, and then playing like Zakir Hussain, just doing something like that. And one day, at my daycare, the son of the lady who ran the daycare also learned tabla. He burst my bubble, because I'd been learning for maybe a few weeks, and he goes, show me what you've learned. And me in my usual, let me show you. This is what I've learned. And he says, all right, we got to teach you something correctly. So my search for my teacher started again. And he took me to his teacher, who was very far at that time. There was another school which was also very far. My parents could drop me. So again, I was without a boat or an anchor, and just floating in the sea. A year or 2 passed, and then we changed a house, and we found somebody who could come home and teach me tabla. So I started learning, and I was playing well, and I was playing at school and everything. But that teacher, I felt like was not really digging deep into it. I was learning, but at the peripheral level. Then, through a series of miraculous experiences, which we won't go into today, I found my way into America. Well, now I'm 8,000 miles away, and again, without a teacher. So back to square one. And I didn't have my tabla at that point of time. So again, luckily Swami pulled me into his fold, and I started playing tabla at the center and everything. So through that time, there was also certain kids who wanted to learn, because there was no tabla teacher at that point of time, and they said, we wanted to learn, would you teach us? And I started, as seva, doing a little bit of teaching here and there. As I did that more and more, when you start to teach, as we've learned in SSE, when you start to teach, you really understand what are your weaknesses, and where you are not able to fulfill what the student needs. And so I identified within that myself as well. And so my search for a teacher became intensified. And Swami kind of showed me somebody who was taking a workshop once or twice a year, and I started working that. And that person was Zakir Hussain's student. So my internal wish was, I should learn from Zakir Hussain. When he came to Phoenix, I even asked him, can I learn from you? And he was wishy-washy, and nothing happened. I approached other teachers, but nothing worked. Then one day when I was playing for bhajans, and I was really having this yearning within Swami, and I was saying, Swami, why is this not working out? Why is this not happening? I'm looking for a teacher. I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to put in the effort. but there's no teacher willing to take me as a student. Is there something wrong with me? Is there something that I need to be working on to get there? And so as I was playing, and the bhajan was going on, and I was having this intense yearning, I looked up at Swami's picture in the center, and the one flower that was on top of his picture beautifully came out of that and just floated to the ground. And it usually when a flower comes out, we've had that many times in the center, it just almost plops to the ground. But this one floated to the ground, and as it was floating, as it was in midair, I got a very strong voice in me that said, I am your teacher. You do not need any other teachers. I am your teacher. And so that internal connection that Ramya was talking about, which I had, but I had not trusted it so far, because I was looking at physical items and somebody outside to teach me. That Swami built that trust and said, I'm your teacher. You don't need anybody else. And then later that year, when we went to Hemes Springs, I got this message, which is, be your own guru, your own teacher. You have the lamp within you. Light it and march on without fear. So just like Swami says, I am God, but so are you. He told me he is my teacher first. And then he said, you are your own teacher. Light that lamp and march on. Do not worry about anything else. And then since then, I've taken that as gospel, and I've found my own journey through this. So, in the honor of the Guru, we'll sing a bhajan. Jaya Sai Guru Deva, Sai Guru Deva.
Jaya Sai Guru Deva, Sai Guru Deva.
Guru Deva bina nirvan nahi, Jaya Sai Guru Deva.
Guru Seva Bina Nirvan Nahi, Jaya Sai Guru Deva.
तुम ही हो माता पिता, तुम ही हो साई गुरुदेवा.
तुम्ही हो माता पिता, तुम्ही हो साई गुरुदेवा.
सत्य स्वरूपा राह दिखाओ, 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 साई गुरुदेवा.
गुरु सेव बिना निर्वाण नहीं, जय साई गुरुदेवा.
गुरु सेव बिना निर्वाण नहीं, जय साई गुरुदेवा.
जय साई गुरुदेवा, साई गुरुदेवा. So, seva bina nirvan nahi, jai sai gurudeva. There's no liberation without service. And so in 2013, I got the chance to become a service coordinator for our center. And this was a great opportunity for me because I had never thought myself to be as a leader in the service organization. I'd always been more of a devotional, maybe a singing, tabla, music kind of guy. But I never thought of me being in that role. And so Swami at that, and as Swami, as Ramya was saying before, whenever Swami knocks at your door, there's always something to learn. And there was one particular project every center does some form of Narayan Seva, food donation or food distribution. And we had a similar thing at Andre House where we used to distribute food and stuff. And for a long time, my personal opinion and my perspective for that project was we could do a lot more than what that project was doing and what it was being run at. Again, it's my learning and my internal. Swami puts these thoughts in your head also so that you can learn from it, right? So, so I was a little bit frustrated about that before I even became the service coordinator. And when I became the service coordinator, the one thought that came to my head was, oh my God, what am I going to do about this project? I cannot shut it down.
And actually, to add some perspective, we had both kind of been feeling that way. Not that the project wasn't good enough, but we also were saying, we've been doing the same thing for 20-something years. Is there a component of this that we could almost hand off to another group, and then we could take it further, whether that was skill development, emotional support, whatever that might be. So not that we should end the feeding, but we have this manpower to do more. So actually, as a result of that, Shreyas and I have a pretty strong belief, I guess, that if we feel something internally, we don't want to go somewhere with that energy. So we've had moments, I've had a lot of moments where I have skipped center or going to bhajan because I know just how I feel that day. And while for some people going to center may uplift them from that, for me, there are moments when I know that it would just cause more cacophony or more drama in my head. And I've said, you know what, it's not fair to others or me. I'm going to sit at home and do my sadhana. So we had actually stopped going to this particular service as well, because every time we would go driving to, while being there, while coming back, we were just not in a space of positivity. And so all of that was happening, and then Shreyas is now the coordinator and has to be there, coordinate all of that.
Right. So one of the things we did very early on was to make sure that because there was certain people that had gotten very comfortable with their roles for that project. And because of that, a lot of other people were not getting a chance, even though, it could be possible. So one of the things we did was we started a spreadsheet so that everybody could get a chance. And what we saw was when we started that, a lot of group 3 and group 4 students started to make it to that project. One simple change that we were doing at that point of time in our lives also was to move to more organic, non-GMO food, as well as be a lot more go green or eco-friendly. So one of the things that was easy to transform is to get the ingredients, same ingredients, but get it non-GMO organic, as well as the plates and papers, make that eco-friendly. And so we did that, and the change was amazing just with these two, where it started to put on a lot of steam, but still there was something missing.
So, we at that same time, we were also including our group 3s, our group 4s. They had been coming for a while. As a group 4 teacher, Shreyas was not teaching at the time. We would really encourage our group 4 students to be outside serving, and some of the younger kids were inside helping with meal prep and things like that. Around that same time, I think we had a teacher refresher training maybe, and Brother Srinivas Raghavan had come to our center. And I remember in one of, again, the conversations or talks, he mentioned how in this very similar type of service project where he was at, or maybe even I think he was visiting another center or something, he had started to go sit with those that were attending. And sitting and having his meal with them. So he would stand in line with them. He would, get the meal, sit with them. He would basically be one with them. And so that was, a really interesting story for us, because we were in this space of like, Swami tells us to see Swami in everybody. And so, okay, we've done at least we're feeding them what we would feed ourselves. We're not cutting, corners or any of that. But what else can we do? And then that particular experience came to us.
Yeah. And so, I think in the benefit of time, what we'll say, so we get into this act of doing a lot, and we forget the part of being and connecting. And so when it comes to service projects, we've gone through this exercise and transformation where being there and talking to people and connecting sometimes is also important part of your service component, maybe a more important part of your service component than just feeding and satisfying the physical needs of the person.
Yeah, so Shreyas had actually, he started, just individually talking to a lot of the attendees. And then what also happened through that, which was beautiful for me to see as an SSC Group 4 teacher, was he inspired and encouraged the Group 4 students to do that same with him. So even though there was some apprehension, because again, like how the physical condition that some of these people come to can be a little scary or like nerve-wracking for some of our students. But Shreyas was there kind of hand-holding. We buddied kids up together so they could have these conversations as well and build those heart-to-heart connections. And often they would come back and share stories of how, well, that person was just like me, except this happened, and that could happen to me as well. So I should be either thankful or, so there was just a deeper depth that came to that project that Swami so beautifully, sent our way. And I think that's, a good segue into kind of like wrapping up a little bit, where we truly feel like, we are all messengers of Swami's love. We're all messengers of Swami's words. We are those hollow flutes spreading things that he wants us to spread. I truly believe that anytime a speaker, comes or shares or talks or discourse, or whatever that is, a song, something on the radio, that's Swami's voice. It's Swami's message to us. And it is our hope that today, while we're sharing our stories and our experiences, it's really just because today Swami wanted us to be the flute to flow through to all of you. One of the messages that I have been really driven or directed to share today is there are lots of times we live in difficult times. We live in very isolating times, and it is very easy to think that we are walking alone. Shreyas and I have experienced that personally, spiritually, in lots of different ways. As YAs, as SSC teachers, as group leaders now of a recently formed group. But really, Swami is always with us. And just like, many of you may be aware of that story or the from the Bible, the footprints in the sand. Those moments when you are not seeing footprints in front of you, behind you, beside you, it's because Swami is right there under you, carrying you on his shoulder, supporting you, not even letting you. When I was actually even reflecting on that today, I said, Swami, it's so beautiful because you're holding me up so my feet don't even have to be on that unstable sand. I don't even have to figure out for a moment where is my footing because you're right there for me. So just to kind of leave you all with that conviction, that belief that you're never alone. We are never alone. There's always Swami within us, merged with us, in that heart space. One of the things that I had to really say, and I feel like when you're an SSC teacher, your whole life becomes a life application. One thing that we had spent a lot of time last year teaching, or our whole theme for last year was, if Swami sent you a text message and said, I have a mission for you, are you willing to reply and say, yes, Swami, I'm ready, without knowing what it is? And our entire year in SSC Group 4 was about that. How do we get ourselves ready to say, yes, I got this? And I've had many moments where I've had to say, okay, Swami, I've said yes to you, so it's on you now. But I also really, in the past few months, had to tell myself and say out loud, some of you have on this call have heard me say this, as a Group 4 teacher, if I am inspiring and teaching my students to stay true to their conviction, because I'm teaching them and telling them and helping them really believe that no matter how alone you might be, Swami is with you, I need to take that same message and apply it no matter what comes up, no matter how many times that might be me standing against the grain or standing up for what I believe or what that voice internally is. I need to know that I'm on Swami's shoulders at that moment in time, and he will not let me drop onto that sand until he's ready. I also believe that Swami really sends you challenges only because he knows you can actually achieve them. So it's kind of like the GRE or any other standardized test where usually you know you're doing well because your questions get harder and harder. That's just how the algorithm is set up. And I think the algorithm of life is set up that way also, where if you find, I have moments where I'm like, Swami, I'm done being resilient. I don't have to prove to you. I know I'm resilient. Stop it. Stop these tests. But I also know that that's my sadhana meter, I guess, or my transformation meter, where I know if journeys are getting what seem like they are harder, it's only because Swami knows I'm ready for it. And to me, it also means when I'm going through that, it's a one-on-one with Swami. He's sending me prasadam. He's sending me a beautiful little package of energy. And I'd almost rather have that than have moments where I'm like, okay, I'm kind of being ignored or I'm settling in. So just wanted to kind of share, just that message with you before we wrap up with our last song. Okay. Sorry, let me just switch this pitch real quick. Have no fear and fight your battle of life, Arjuna. Have no fear and fight your battle of life, Arjuna. So says Lord Krishna to Arjuna in Gita.
Have no fear and fight your battle of life, Arjuna. So says Lord Krishna to Arjuna in Gita.
Action is greater than inaction, O Arjuna.
Action is greater than inaction, Arjuna.
Forsake not your duty and be a man, Arjuna.
Forsake not your duty and be a man, Arjuna.
Fight for righteousness and fight for your dharma.
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 So says Lord Krishna to Arjuna in Gita.
So says Lord Krishna to Arjuna in Gita.
Have no fear and fight your battle of life, Arjuna. So says Lord Krishna to Arjuna in Gita. Sairam. We thank you all again for this beautiful satsang. It has given us a lot of memories to relive and lessons to get back into, and that GRE for the next sadhana that we are in and that will come our way. So we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for this opportunity to share and be Swami's flutes, sending his divine love to all of you.
Sairam.
Sairam.